So if you look at the internet right now, there are these user-generated celebrity databases claiming that in the year 2026, Adrianna Lynn will be worth exactly $239,392,641.
Which is just a staggeringly precise number.
Right, I mean, down to the single dollar. And according to these sites, she's supposedly going to be spending her days like lounging on private yachts, flying in private jets, just living this modern oligarch lifestyle.
Yeah, but the reality is actually so much more interesting. She's a heavily tattooed, retired piercing artist living a super quiet, very private life out in Southern California.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting into for today's deep dive. We're looking at how a former JCPenney child model basically broke every single rule of her pristine classical training, pivoted into one of the most highly scrutinized industries on the planet, and then just walked away.
Yeah, completely walked away. We have a huge stack of sources today, ranging from formal encyclopedic entries all the way down to those incredibly bizarre, crowdsourced rumor mill sites you just mentioned.
Because our mission here is really to trace the mechanics of this pivot for you. The surface level contradiction is just massive, right?
Oh, it really is. We are dissecting a life that functions as an absolute masterclass in defying expectations and reclaiming your own narrative.
Yeah, and you might know her better by her professional moniker, Adrenalynn. Because how does a girl who spends her childhood modeling for department store catalogs, who secures a full-ride fine arts dance scholarship, end up winning a top-tier industry award in adult entertainment?
And then, at the very height of that success, she abruptly quits via a casual tweet, just to become a professional body modification artist.
It's wild. So to understand how someone actually executes a trajectory like that without totally burning out, we really have to look at the foundational training.
Right. Long before the internet fame and all the tattoos, we have to start in suburban Texas. So she was born July 8, 1985, in Allen, Texas.
And right from the jump, the sources give us this fascinating look into how public profiles just scramble personal details, to fit algorithms.
Yeah, it's a mess. Some sources document her as biracial, born to a black mother and white father, while another completely separate source specifically files her ethnicity under Latina.
Which honestly is a perfect primer for how the internet assigns an identity based on search volume rather than lived reality.
Absolutely. But looking past all that algorithmic confusion, the really undeniable fact here is her extreme early work ethic.
Oh, yeah. She was operating as a working professional before most kids even
Started kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly. She spent over 5 years with the Kim Dawson Agency. She modeled for the JCPenney catalog, graduated from Plano East Senior High, and then landed a full-ride scholarship to Southern Methodist University in Dallas.
For fine arts.
Yeah.
Right. Which a full fine arts scholarship is not something you just stumble into.
No, definitely not.
It requires this level of physical and mental discipline that is genuinely difficult to overstate. She was classically trained across multiple disciplines, so ballet, modern dance, tap, hip-hop.
It's giving very much that classic Disney Channel star trajectory, like the hyper-disciplined, classically trained overachiever who is just completely molded by traditional institutions.
That's a great analogy. And this is where we really have to look at the mechanics of classical dance training. Ballet, specifically, trains a performer to completely dissociate from physical discomfort.
Right, because you're literally learning to contort your body.
Exactly. You push through this blistering pain in pointed shoes, all while having to maintain this absolutely effortless, serene expression on your face.
It's almost like she was an architect who spent her formative years learning how to build, luxury, highly regulated corporate skyscrapers.
Yeah, because you are taught to be a highly functioning instrument for a choreographer's vision. You're told exactly where to stand, what the angle should be, how to present the final product.
You master the structural engineering of traditional performance, but you can't successfully rebel against a structure unless you intimately understand how the physics of it actually work.
I love that phrasing. She understood the mechanics of her own physical form better than anyone else in the room. Her body was this instrument she could tune, but also a canvas she could present.
Right.
And that foundational understanding is the exact mechanism that allowed her to take this sharp left turn right around 2007.
So she's about 22 years old, and instead of taking that fine arts degree to Broadway or joining a modern dance company, she pivots. She enters the mature entertainment industry.
Right, and she adopts the name Adrenalynn.
Which, by the way, according to the sources, wasn't even some corporate rebrand created by a studio executive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a nickname she already carried from her early days doing nude alt modeling.
Oh, wow. Okay, so she signs a brief contract with Digital Playground in November 2007, which was a massive player in the space at the time.
Huge play. And she doesn't just, participate in the industry, right? She completely dominates.
She really does. By 2009, she wins a highly coveted AVN award for an acclaimed all-female ensemble scene in the film Cheerleaders. She hits the absolute pinnacle of this specific world.
Okay, but let me stop you there for a second. Because the broader cultural narrative usually frames women entering this field in a very, I don't know, passive light.
Yeah, the assumption is often desperation or coercion or just a lack of other options.
Right. The media loves a tragic, disempowered framing. So I hear the agency argument, and I understand she had a fine arts degree, but isn't there a risk we're kind of romanticizing a pivot into what is notoriously a highly scrutinized, very harsh industry?
It's a fair question.
Are we just slapping a female empowerment label on this because she was university educated?
Well, I think it's less about romanticizing the industry itself and much more about analyzing her specific execution within it. We have to look at the actual physical demands of mature cinema in the late 2000s.
Okay, what does that look like on set?
It requires immense physical stamina, acute spatial awareness, the ability to find your light, hit highly specific marks, and perform these grueling physical acts for hours while a director calls the shots.
Oh. Wait, those are the exact same mechanical skills honed in classical dance?
Exactly. She took the structural engineering she learned building those corporate skyscrapers and used it to build an underground punk club.
That is fascinating. The aesthetic application is violently different, but the fundamental physical toolkit is identical.
Right. She applied a traditional, grueling discipline to a completely untraditional, stigmatized medium.
So it wasn't just some reckless rebellion. It was another highly choreographed performance art, but this time she was, testing the limits of her own boundaries.
And she proved she could succeed at the absolute highest level, which makes her exit even more fascinating.
Oh, the exit is wild. So it's September 2010. The awards are on her shelf. She is at the literal peak of her marketability, and she simply logs onto Twitter and posts that she is done.
Yes, done.
No grand farewell tour, no tell-all book monetizing her exit, just a tweet.
Which is, leaving on your own terms, especially at the height of your earning potential, is the ultimate flex of bodily autonomy.
Definitely, especially in an industry built entirely around keeping performers on camera for as long as profitably possible.
Right. An abrupt, self-directed exit is incredibly rare. She decided the medium no longer served her artistic or personal needs, so she just shut it down.
She claimed authorship of her physical body in the film world, but leaving mature cinema didn't mean she was abandoning her physical artistry altogether. The medium just shifted.
Yeah. She transitioned from capturing her body on a digital screen to permanently altering it with ink and metal.
Let's talk about the alt modeling phase, because we see her lean heavily into platforms like Suicide Girls during this period.
And the aesthetic contrast here is super crucial. Late 2000s mainstream adult entertainment was very glossy, highly produced, and very, very artificial.
Right, spray tans and bleached hair.
Exactly. And the Suicide Girls aesthetic was the complete antithesis of that. It was gritty, DIY, heavily tattooed, and fiercely self-styled.
It was almost a visual rejection of the polished, traditional beauty standards she grew up portraying back in the JCPenney catalogs.
Yeah, clearly.
So let's look at the actual canvas, because her modifications are extensive and hyper-specific.
Yeah.
We're looking at piercings in her septum, her ears, her tongue, her navel, her right nostril.
And venoms, too.
Yeah, venoms, which are the double horizontal tongue piercings. And then for her tattoos, she's got stars on her back and feet, a female figure on her upper arm. But here's the detail that really trips me up.
Okay, what is it?
She has the word adrenaline running all the way down her right forearm. If she was completely done with the industry, why permanently brand herself with the stage name from that exact era? Doesn't that just anchor her to the past she just walked away from?
It anchors her, sure, but it also reclaims the asset.
Reclaims it how?
Well, think about entertainment in general. The stage name is often treated as the property of the studio or the audience, right?
Yeah.
By permanently etching Adrenalynn into her own skin, she is literally taking ownership of the brand. She's making this bold statement that the persona belongs to her physical body not to a DVD box or some studio's intellectual property vault.
Oh, wow. I hadn't thought about it like that. That actually makes the next piece of body art even more striking.
The intimate one.
Yeah, the sources detail this highly intimate anatomical tattoo. It's a bold text tattoo surrounding a very private anatomical location, explicitly dedicating herself to her husband, Jared Richardson, who is also her manager and photographer.
Right.
And the text literally reads, Jared's little F-word doll.
Which is, I mean, when you spend years in a profession where your body is viewed by millions of strangers who feel this huge sense of entitlement to your anatomy, placing a hyper-explicit, fiercely monogamous dedication in a highly private location is a profound psychological barrier.
It really is. She is deciding exactly who gets access to that space and what exact message they receive when they are permitted there.
It's the ultimate boundary-setting mechanism.
But she didn't just remain the canvas. She actually became licensed by the Texas Health Department for body piercing.
Right. She apprenticed at Psycho Clown Tattoo and eventually became a leading tattoo and scarification artist there.
Which, I understand how a dancer becomes a model, but the leap from the subject being viewed to the person actually wielding the needle seems like a massive psychological jump to me. How does that transition actually work?
It's the shift from passive to active agency. Think about it. For her entire life up to that point, from the catalog shoots to the dance recitals to the film sets, she was the subject.
Always the one being looked at.
Exactly. She was the canvas being painted on, the object being arranged by directors and choreographers for an audience's consumption.
Okay, I see where you're going.
By becoming a licensed tattooist, a piercer, and a scarification artist, she physically takes control of the instrument.
Right.
She's no longer the one bleeding in pointy shoes for someone else's vision. She is the creator permanently altering the flesh of others. She commands the room, she operates the needle, and she dictates the final image.
She claimed ultimate authorship of her physical body in the real world. But that brings us to the craziest part of the sources, because what happens when you try to claim authorship in a digital space that completely refuses to let you edit your own history?
Oh, the internet never forgets.
Never, because she successfully transitions, right? She moves to Southern California, lives a quiet life with her husband, makes her art, but the internet is this archive with a relentless memory, and it does not let people simply move on.
The digital footprint just becomes completely detached from the actual human being.
Yeah.
And that brings us to those celebrity FAQ and rumor mill sites we saw in the sources.
Yes, these user-generated databases that attempt to quantify a life she has already totally closed the chapter on.
And they are so absurdly precise. We mentioned it at the very top of the deep dives, but the user-generated net worth estimate projecting her wealth in the year 2026 is exactly $239,392,641.
It's hilarious. They confidently list her assets to include luxury yachts and private airplanes.
For a retired alt model and piercing artist.
Right.
It is a staggering projection.
But honestly, it highlights this phenomenon of digital commodification. When an individual enters a highly visible, highly provocative industry, the audience develops this weird, false sense of ownership.
Because they paid for access to her image in, 2008, they feel they've purchased permanent equity in her identity forever.
Exactly. They treat her existence like a publicly traded company.
And it extends way beyond just fake financial projections. These sites feature these public polls where completely anonymous strangers vote on her private reality.
These polls are wild. They really are. There's a poll where 75% of voters confidently declare she uses substances regularly. And there is absolutely zero evidence provided for this.
None.
It's just strangers clicking a button to gamify a human being's habits.
Gamification of her identity is the exact right term for it. And they also vote on her sexual orientation, right?
Oh, yeah. The breakdown in the sources shows 36% voting she's gay, 43% voting straight, and 21% voting bisexual.
Which is, they are treating a real person's internal life like a multiple-choice pop quiz.
It's so dystopian.
Yeah.
And it really forces you to look at the broader culture and ask, why does an audience feel entitled to digitally crowdsource a stranger's reality like that?
It happens because the internet creates this hyper-fictionalized avatar of the persona. Adrenalynn, the icon, becomes a character that the internet feels it can just write fan fiction about, complete with the yachts and the substance habits.
Right, they're not interacting with her at all.
No, the audience is interacting with the ghost of a brand. They're completely ignoring the fact that Adrianna Lynn, the human being, is existing entirely outside of that ecosystem.
The contrast between that digital ghost and her actual self-reported reality is just so jarring.
Hmm.
If you look at the sources, away from the multi-million-dollar polls, her own description of herself is incredibly grounded.
Very down to earth.
Yeah, she describes herself as goofy, extremely flexible, sexually fluid, and she actually shares the story about losing her virginity in the back row of a crowded movie theater.
Which is just so human.
It's human, it's messy, it doesn't involve private jets or, pristine classical perfection.
She basically refuses to perform for the algorithm.
Yeah.
By living a quiet, private life and embracing a messy human self-description, she starves the digital avatar of new material.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, the internet has to invent the yachts and the poles because she is no longer providing them with the highly choreographed performance they expect.
Wow. It really brings us to the end of a truly fascinating arc. We've watched a trajectory that started with a hyper-disciplined child model hitting her marks for J.C. Penney. We saw the intense, pain-dissociating training of a classical fine arts dancer.
And then we analyzed how she took those exact mechanical skills and pivoted into the grueling, stigmatized world of mature cinema, securing industry-topping awards.
Right. And then we watched her exercise ultimate bodily autonomy by just walking away from all of it with a single tweet, reclaiming her physical form through intense body modification and stepping behind the needle to become the artist herself.
It is the ultimate refusal to be pigeonholed by your training or your past. She understood the structural engineering of every single world she entered. She mastered the execution, and she demolished the building the moment the architecture no longer served her.
And that is the core takeaway for you, our listener, as we wrap up this deep dive today. Look at the structures you are currently operating inside. Are you staying in a career or maintaining a specific identity simply because it's what you went to school for?
Are you enduring the metaphorical point in shoes just because you spent years learning how to bleed in them quietly?
Exactly. Or are you willing to recognize that the skills you've built can be applied to an entirely new medium? You don't have to remain the canvas. You can always pick up the needle.
The capacity to radically shift your medium is always available, provided you're willing to let go of the audience's expectations.
But as we close out today, I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over, something that really builds on this strange, crowdsourced internet archive we just discussed.
Yeah, the digital ghost.
Right. We talked about how these rumor mill sites gamify her past and invent absurd financial data. But think about the next decade. If future artificial intelligence models are trained on these massive user-generated celebrity databases, will the line between our actual lived history and the internet's crowdsourced fiction just completely disappear?
That's a terrifying thought.
Isn't it? When future generations ask about the past, will the AI tell them about the quiet tattoo artist in California, or will it confidently report on the imaginary oligarch with the $239 million yacht? It really makes you wonder what version of your own digital ghost is currently being written. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.